It's Hockenheim time. All right. This week took us back to Hockenheim. And if I'm doing my math correctly, it's been about 10 weeks since we were there last. It feels like forever, and I guess that's like 2.5 months. So yeah, it's been a minute. We did better than we did last time. Quite a bit, I think, actually. Again, we switched cars. We're in the Porsche now versus the BMW that we were in last season. Link to that video here. Yeah. And our I rating, like I said at the end of in last week's video, we kind of tanked it after our races last week, so we had gotten it down to 998. We got that back up to 1172 this week. It did get up into the 1200s, but we couldn't keep it there quite. Too many races that we didn't finish. We took ourselves, not even didn't finish, we kind of took ourselves out of the running in as well. Our safety rating, we got that up from a 2.09. Again, same thing. We did some races after our last race last week in other series, and kind of we got that back up to an A 2.95. So we're on the right trajectory on both those metrics. Like I said, I went back and I looked at that Hockenheim video from last season, and last season we started out with a 141.837 on our best lap of our first race. This season we did a 141.952, so a little slower even. I don't know if that's the different car, if it was like a slightly warmer track, or what the reasoning was, but we didn't. We were a little slower to start with, but we got our time down. This season, or last season, we got our time down to a 140.002 between practice and race. That was our best time. This season, we got our best time down to a 140.423. So like over half a second faster. Now I don't know whether I should attribute that to being better at driving GT3s. If we've learned that much in these 10 weeks, I think that could be a big part of it. The different car, maybe, although I think I'm not quite as comfortable in this one as I was towards the end in the BMW there. But I think just being more comfortable in the GT3s in general, knowing the track and having time to practice the finer points of it have helped. And we'll get into, I'm going to go over the standings here real quick, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the details on that. In the Fanatec GT3 Challenge, this week we placed 110th. Last week we were 217th, so we did quite a bit better versus our peers here. And then overall in the standings for the season in Division 6, again, that we have moved up a division in the world, and we're 87th place in the standings for the Fanatec GT3 Challenge. And then in the VRS GT Sprint Series, we placed 174th this week, which was not quite as good as last week's 161st. I did not do as many races here in this series as I did in the other one. And then overall we're 96th place in that series. So the similarities and differences between my experiences at Hockenheim, both last season and this season, in the GT3s. Both, I've had trouble with the hairpin. The hairpin at Hockenheim is kind of, I would say, maybe its most distinguishing feature, although it's kind of annoying. I don't really care for it. I'm probably because I'm not good at it. I do feel I have gotten better at it. I've not mastered it though. I'm able to I think take it and get out of it a little quicker. I am able to navigate it more quickly than I was last season, and that was with some help from watching the same track guides as I did last time, and then just some help from chat on like trying to figure out how to get the power out and stuff. Yeah, those are words. One thing that's different is I don't think I had specific places where I was having problems. It wasn't like last season where on the rumble strip 2 turns after the or is it 3 turns after the hairpin, where I'd hit that rumble strip and sometimes it would cause the car to go all kinds of wonky, or like hitting the patches of dirt here and there. It was more trying to push to get time to catch folks or stay ahead of folks, and just overdriving the car and exceeding its limits, which I think is a good thing because that means I'm pushing the car to its limits, and that's not something I would normally do in the past. I would normally like keep the car pretty well within its limits. Whether I'm doing so in the most productive fashion is debatable. Probably not, but I'm getting there, which is promising, exciting. So yeah, basically kind of with a rundown of the week. I had a bunch of work stuff going on in the early parts of the week, which meant I couldn't stream, which meant I was just doing, I got home from work after pretty long days, and then would do some races afterwards, and I'd usually kind of kick it off with GT3, then switch back to I'd do a TCR just to make myself feel good about myself, because I was getting second place in those pretty consistently, and then if not second place, close to it, and then go back to another GT3 challenge. So that's why I have so many more of the Fanatec GT3 challenge races versus the VRS. And then towards the end of the week, the work obligations had lightened, and we were able to do some streaming, and we got some good races in there. And I'm pretty, like I said, I'm pretty happy. I was pushing, like the 141s were kind of a roadblock for the first half of the week, until finally on one race, I forget which one it was, but I hit like a 140.5 in qualifying. And usually I don't get my best lap times in qualifying. And that was pretty exciting to me. I'm like, ooh, I can do this in qualifying, I can do this in the race. And then I started doing it in the race, and I think on one qualifying lap, again, one before I streamed, I think I was on pace to maybe get under a 140 in qualifying, but I ended up like taking a corner in the back half of the track, kind of wonky. I still ended up with like a 140.5, but I think that was maybe on pace to do a 139.999, you know, really just by the hair of my chinny chin underneath it. But yeah, that was exciting. So like a lot of progress, I think, this week. It made me feel really good about how much work I've put into this stuff, and how much further I've come since we've started. I know that that's the case. I know I've gotten better. Sometimes it's hard to see it though, and this is one of those moments where it became a little bit more visible to me, at least in terms of raw pace. Like I said, we had quite a few moments where I'd push too hard and end up with an off track that either ended the race or put me to the back of the pack, and you know, that stuff happens. But it's one of those things where you've gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet, kid. But yeah, it's pushing to get where you need to go, and you're gonna have some shakeups along the way, I think. Anyway, that's what it seems like to me. Next week is gonna take us to Brands Hatch, and that's a track that I know from doing in the TCR, racing in the TCR, and it was a fun track to race in the TCR once I got a handle on it. I know that there are some really kind of hairy corners on that track. Like turn 2 is like a blind 90-degree right-hander, which is yeah. And then 2 turns after that, the left-hander is kind of weird. So that'll take some getting used to, I think. And then there's one in the back half that kind of caught me off guard a lot of times. But I think having some familiarity with it will help speed things along, and this should be one where I can kind of get my head wrapped around it, hopefully quickly. And then we'll spend the last half of the week kind of finessing things. That's what we'll do. If you want to watch that process, head on over to twitch.tv/thepiltdownman, and if you want to watch live, that is. And if you want to keep all up and see how the summary of that event goes, hit the subscribe button down below. It's there. And if you liked this video, the thumbs up button works. If you didn't like it, the thumbs down one works as well. As always, we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye.